Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and today I am quilting Bubble Fern. So right now I am travel stitching back to my starting point. I'm just going to explain the basics of this design. Basically, you're going to form a vine line, and then you're going to branch out with these bubble petals. So I swirl into kind of a spiral and then thread paint it. I swirl around and around and around until it looks like this big white bubble on my quilt. And I know that this isn't going to be a filler design for everybody. This isn't going to work in all styles of quilts, but it is definitely a good design to have when you need it, when you want that effect for your quilt. So I'm going to work my way up, just working off the vine line, swirling out with my petal shape, doing that little bit of travel stitching. And that travel stitching is great practice for both speed, movement, and also just control of being able to stitch the lines. You're wanting to stitch the lines kind of parallel to one another, but not build up in the exact same place, because that's how you end up breaking thread. So thread painting is a form of free motion quilting. It's a fun technique to master. So definitely give this one a try if thread painting is something that has been interesting you. All right, we are almost done filling up all of these petal shapes, and now I'm going to teach you how to move on with the design. You see, we have this fern shape. You know, this is a stem center design. So to move on, all we've got to do is just branch out with a new stem. So I just came off between two petal shapes. Little bit of space there, travel stitch all the way back just to build up my thread, and then now all I'm going to do is fill in this area with more petals. So this is going to change the design. Obviously I might have to bend some petals, make them longer, make them fit and fill the area of my quilt where this is going to go. And this is what I love about free motion quilting, is it gives you that opportunity to really create gorgeous texture on your quilt and to fill it so nicely with that pretty texture. So I'm going to just keep on moving on with my bubble fern design. And now let's give this a try on a much bigger scale on my long arm. So I'm here on my Quilting 21X Elite, and I've got just a regular practice sandwich here. Just start out with my vine line, making that movement smooth and easy with my hands. And I'm just trying to run that nice and parallel. I had a little bit of a wobble there, but that's okay. I need to grab my frame weight, actually. This is a rice bag that I sewed. Oops, I'm catching my thread here. Gotta be careful. And it is filled with rice. It's a tube of fabric filled with rice, and it is going to apply a little bit more pressure down here on my machine bed through the quilt, and that might give me just a little bit more control as I stitch this design. So let's see if that helps. Stitch on down, swirl into my first bubble fern leaf, swing around and around and around. And I've done a little bit of practice with this just to kind of figure out some ideas and game plan, and I found that with a long arm, what's interesting is it's easier to swing out. It's easier to make a nice big circle, but it's harder to fill it consistently. It's harder to get down in there and fill it up nicely with that thread painting. You have a little bit more control on your home sewing machine that's stationary, because you're able to make those finer movements. Now, one thing I really love is how this is practice for quilting feathers. It's the same shape, it's the same design, only it's a little bit more forgiving because we've got these gaps. We're able to practice this thread painting and spiraling. We're also practicing circles here, forming circles all at the same time, and then also practicing echo quilting as I stitch out all the way around, and then a little bit of travel stitching. You don't have to do much. You can just bounce off that and swirl into your next shape. That looks great. Now, as for where this is going to work, you're stitching on a real quilt, you want it to take up lots of space, Bubble Fern's going to be a great choice. You can see how big. I can take this all the way out and fill in this entire area. I might not fill it with my initial line, but watch, when I fill this in, I'm going to do it really light. There we go. And then I'm going to swing out and around. I'm going to make this really big. Look how I can just expand that, and that area is quilted. So this is going to be a great all-over quilting design. It's also going to be a great border design. You can pretty much stitch it anywhere in your quilts. Now let's think about shrinking it down. What if you wanted to do this as a background fill? So let's say you had a design like motifs like this. Would you put bubble fern in between, like stitched inside here? No, it's not going to be an actual fill to go and densely quilt a quilt and I stitch in the background. It's too showy for that. This is your motif style design. This is a design that goes on your quilt, stands out, shows off, or it secures the layers with all over style quilting. Now, I stitched back through the middle of my vine line simply because it's really hard to stitch right along the line. Otherwise, I could break thread, I could travel stitch, but I find it easier just to throw more thread at it, stitch right through the middle. Now this time, I've changed the shape of my bubble fern leaves. You see how I'm swirling outward and out this time. You can change the orientation of these. You can have them swirl out and in, kind of this upward shape. You can have them swirl out and around. You can have them spiral in the other direction. And you can also play around with spiraling inside your thread painting. Change direction a few times in there. Go back and forth, back and forth. It's thread painting. You can do whatever you want to do there. So here I'll swirl around. And hopefully you can see that direction change. So this one's curling like this clockwise. This one's curling counterclockwise. Same fern, looks great. I think it's going to work great. And you can change direction. Here I'm going to go this way. I think this is a very showy design. It's definitely going to stand out. You're going to see it from a distance. So be mindful of that. If you've already got some pretty intense piecing, you're not going to want to put this design on the quilt. It's going to compete with it. It might end up making it too busy. But this is going to be a great design for that quilt that's maybe plainer, maybe doesn't have very flashy fabrics, and it just needs that little bit of oomph, that little bit of drama. Great border design. You can fill in a border really, really pretty and really add that punch of texture right to the edges of the quilt. So as you can see, bubble fern definitely works on a home sewing machine. It also works on a long arm. So no matter which way you stitch it, I hope that you'll give it a try and have some fun. Now, if you'd like to learn more about free motion quilting, if you would like to find lots of designs and inspiration, come and check out all the designs I have listed at leahday.com/FMQ. Come and learn how to quilt some more beautiful textures with me. Until next time, let's go quilt.